Good evening, everyone. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Up Front and Center podcast, where we keep it loud and proud. I am excited tonight as we go behind the helmet. Tonight, listen, you all, tonight, we're going to hear a mother's voice in the recruiting journey. She's going to tell her story. I'm your host, Enoch Smith, founder of Starts Up Front and your 5-on-5 Shockers. Tonight, we have a special guest, and I'm so excited to have this individual. We have Kesha Richardson, sister of Sigma Gamma Rho sorority in the house. Look at that, you all. We represent the Nifty Nine. I'm a member of Phi Beta Sigma, and we got my sister in the house. She's the mother. She's going to tell a story. She's the mother of Eric Johnson Jr., Marcellus Johnson. Now, Eric Johnson Jr. is with the Indianapolis Colts. Marcellus Johnson, both professional football players. He's with the Dallas Cowboys. And she's got another baby that's inspiring to do things different from a mindset of being a gamer, and that's Jalen Gibson, who's going to graduate pretty soon from Heartland College. Let's give it up to him as he's recognizing himself going on in computer science. Let's put our hands together for him tonight and recognizing this great work. So on behalf of that, Kesha, we got you here tonight.
Thank you, Brother Enoch. Thank you for
Man,
having
it's
me.
exciting to have you. Thank you for spending some time with us on tonight. Man, it's been so long since I've seen you. I'm thankful for you coming. Peace and blessings to the family. We welcome you up to here to Up Close and in Front and Center podcast, where we talk football, where we talk faith. We're going to talk family and the foundation it takes to build young men and women on and off the court. So today's episode is a special one. Why? Because I have a mother. Now, we oftentimes hear about fathers talking about football, right, Kesha?
Yeah, all the time.
We always hear about the coaches, but you're going to tell us your experience, if you don't mind tonight, Kesha, about your journey, all the things behind the scenes, because too often we hear in the recruiting story from the athletes, the coach, but rarely from a person who's been there from day one.
Right.
The one driving the practice. We know you've been there. The one sitting in the stands, the mama praying, the one worried about her baby playing this game in the first place, and protection. So we honored again, Kesha, tonight. We just want to hear from you about just opening up anything you would like to add on behalf of yourself.
No problem. Let me take a point of privilege before we get started, though, Brother Enoch. First, I need to give you your flowers. Brother Enoch, I just want to thank you for sharing your platform, what you've been doing with our brothers out in the community and our young football players, and especially the ones that's in the trenches. We always hear about the 7-on-7s, but you taking the O-line, D-line, because without them, nobody getting nowhere. So I want to just thank you for sharing your gifts that God has given you. I always sing your praise, and whenever I run across parents whose sons are in the trenches, I let them know, hey, the person you need to talk to is Enoch Smith. That's who you need to go work with. So thank you, brother, for all the things that you've been doing. I just personally know how big of a difference and how good of a trainer you are. So I just want to give you your flowers while we're here. Since we both hit 50, we gotta make sure we getting our flowers in. So I just want to take this point in time to thank you, and even just allowing me to come on and talk to moms and just letting them know about this football world as well from a mother's perspective. So I appreciate
Absolutely. You know, I had to give you this chance. This is an exciting chance for me to have you here because you allowed me to coach not one, but two of your babies when they was going through this process. The
it.
recruiting industry is rough out here. And I learned throughout it from being a professional football player myself, going with their father. We played professional football together.
Right.
And now we get to explore some opportunities outside of the football realm. Me being a personal trainer, working with them big boys, because you already know the game of football, it all starts up front.
Exactly.
So,
Without them, it ain't gonna be no you.
man, there's no quarterbacks in the game, and I'm gonna preach it loud and proud. There's no running backs in this game. There's no wide receivers. It's tight ends, but tight end is the expansion of the O line. So
Right.
without the big boys who never really get the praise, they do all the grunt work. But when the game is
Hmm.
over, they always talk about the quarterbacks, talk about the running backs, they talk about the
Yeah.
receivers, all the ones that's they're getting the stats, but the big boys, they got to be down and dirty every single play. And you got some big old boys that you've raised
Yeah,
out here in this atmosphere. So I
yeah.
know you could tell it from a mama's perspective. So go ahead.
Yep. So I just want to say tell all the moms that's out there is that, we're just as much as part of this recruiting process as the dads and the coaches as well. And I've learned that over time is that as a mother, I had to educate myself because I may not play the game, but I know a little bit of something. I had to educate myself to get me prepared in order for me to be an advocate, in order for me to be a support system, and even to be a counselor, a good counselor to, my kids as they're going through this process. So that's whenever I meet moms, I always tell them, take the opportunity to learn the game that your baby's is playing. Pay attention and practice, educate yourself, not always rely on our support system, which is the dads and the coaches as well.
Mhm.
Know for yourself, because we look at things from a totally different perspective than than the other support people.
Mhm.
I am a single mom, yes, because I'm single, but my son's dads are very involved in their lives, and they're there. So I just don't do this on my own.
Yep.
So I have to, regardless of our situations, right? We have to
Mhm.
work as a team. Not only to be a team, for our family, but we have to be a team for our kids, and we have to become like, not management, but we got to be able to, from a business perspective, make decisions on a business level together. So, moms, you need to be educated about what's going on so you can have a voice at those tables too. So, that's where, so you do play a very important part in the recruiting process.
Thank you so much for expanding on that because I think I met you. I think I met the family when your boy's kind of older. I think Eric Johnson Jr., he was still in high school at Plainfield. And then I know I
Mhm.
came to know Marcellus. I think he was actually going into his
He
senior
was a
year. He had no offers. He came to train with us and we kind of
Mhm.
developed him, worked with him hand in hand. So if you don't mind sharing that story, how we came to meet, I know he was at Normal, and just kind of expand on that if you don't mind.
Oh, no problem. So my two sons had two totally different processes, right? One was by grace of God, and one was a traditional hard work, covered by God type of process, right?
Man.
So my oldest son was a wrestler. He was known for wrestling. So all throughout his high school career, we done everything in the hopes of him becoming a wrestler. So all of the off-season work was all based around wrestling, and football was a supplement to help keep him prepared for wrestling, you know. So in his senior year, he just popped and he just came to us and he was like, "Mom, I think I want to play football." I think he told his dad first. He told his dad, like, "I think I want to play football." And we were like, "Wait, what? Like, that's not what we've been planning for." So, there's a big Chicago writer called Edgy Tim. I'm pretty sure
Yep.
if you're from Chicagoland, you've heard of him. His dad just happened to bump into him, and he remembered him from when he played for St. Rita, and we got his film to him, and he tagged Eric as one of Illinois' biggest sleeper. And that's how his recruiting process took off. Like after, football was almost ending his senior year. And if you know anything about the recruiting process, your senior year window, if you that's late in the game.
Yep.
So, his recruiter from Missouri State came to a wrestling meet to talk to Eric. So he didn't see him at a football game. He saw him at a wrestling meet.
Wow.
And, he just happened to get some offers from him, from Missouri State and from South Dakota. And, we ended up at Missouri State. So that was, that was a grace of God. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But Marcellus, he lived in Normal, Illinois, which is central Illinois. We're not small town, so we're not in the upper above 80. We're not in the Chicagoland area. His recruiting process was totally different. A lot of recruiters ain't coming to, central Illinois to do any recruiting unless it's something down there that they really need to see.
Right.
He had to come up north to you, to the MLK showcase. He had to prove that he could play with those Chicagoland boys. So his started his freshman year. So we took him to his very first recruit, his first camp at Illinois State. It was the big lineman's camp, and he didn't know nothing. Like we didn't know what a shuttle was. And I took him that day. His dad wasn't able to make it. So I took him that day. We didn't know what a 5-10-5 was. But luckily, Devontae Dunn, I don't know if you remember Devontae Dunn,
Yeah,
his
from
dad,
Toledo.
yeah, his dad happened to be there, and we was sitting next to him, and he was kind of like, okay, Marcellus, this is you're supposed to do type of thing. But it helped us because we knew we got to watch the seniors and the juniors compete, right? And
Yep.
it was an opportunity for us to get to see, okay, this is what he's supposed to look like. So I got 4 years, well, three. I got 3 years to get him to look like this. And, so his recruitment process was we started from his freshman year, sending him to camps every summer. He was going to speed training. We was sending him on the Amtrak train to Chicago. So we was investing that time and giving him the skills that he needed for him to be ready for when his opportunity came. So those was two totally different recruiting processes. But if we didn't have, if I wasn't here listening to dads, and the one thing I've learned too, dads gossip just as worse as females do. If you stand on that fence and you listen to them dads talking, they, sticking their chests out and bragging about what camp they kid going to, you can learn a lot. So,
Oh yeah.
so that I learned a lot by hearing dads talk and watching, the different discussion boards and that type
Mhm.
of thing, and following other top recruiters in the Chicagoland area and see where they were doing and who they were training with. And that is how we got Marcellus to where he was. But yeah, those were two totally different processes right there between those two.
Oh, awesome. Shout out to Edgy Tim. Shout out to Missouri State, my alma mater. Yes, we gonna rep them tonight. We recognize them. Eric Johnson came from there. I came from there, so we gonna shout them out. And to
Yeah,
Kevin Dunn and my boy Devontae Dunn from their very own starts up front. That's what we came to meet Marcellus. So when
yeah,
Marcellus came in the door, man, he was a tall, big, gigantic kid. I saw him with his dad coming to the door. I'm like, how many offers he got? He's like, none. I'm like, you
mhm,
gotta be kidding me. This kid's like 6'4", 260 to 70 pounds, a junior in high school and has no offers. There's no way. But I saw that he had all the attributes that it would take to get there. But we had to bring that nasty out, Keisha,
yeah,
in
yeah,
training, hardcore training. Initially, he was in like a shock world because when we first started this off in 2016, that's all we focused on is O-line, D-line. And when
hmm,
he came to camp, we was working, we put him out there and we hit it grinding. I was
yeah.
even out there pass rushing. I would pass block. We would do it all. So that's the growth that we saw in your baby from the beginning to the end. So I asked you, when did you first realize that football could be more than just a game for both Eric and Marcellus?
When they were born. They were both 11 pounds. So we knew, there's a players club saying you got to use what you got to get what you want. The goal was never for them to get to the NFL. The goal that me and dad set was for them to get education paid for, debt
Right.
free with a degree. That was the goal. We knew that they were going to be larger. We just knew their genetic pool was going to be different. We knew that they was going to be some type of athlete, whether it was football, baseball, basketball. We exposed them to it all. But that we knew we had them when we were in college. Like I was still in college when I had both of them, and their dad was in,
Mhm.
playing football and finishing up in grad school. And we knew we wasn't gonna be able to afford college right then and there. You know what I mean? So we was like, okay, we got to use the talents that God blessed them with to get them to get their education paid for. That's when we knew that it was more than just a game. We were using it as a tool. You know what I mean? Like these are tools that we're using to get things that we want for a better future, right? So
Mhm.
once they got those degrees, they achieved our dreams already, right? They got their
Right.
degrees early at school. Marcellus had, he got his degree early. Eric got his degree. And anything after that, they had to find their own why. Like, why am I doing this and why am I playing? Right? Because you've done everything we wanted. You got your education, you got your degree. If you told me, Mom, I don't want to play football no more, I'm there with a U-Haul the next day. But if this is something that you want, you have to now set your own personal goals on what you want to accomplish, what you want to do, right? So once they started expressing to us the things that they wanted, then me and dad was just pretty much going to just be on the same page and do everything we need to do to support them from here on out, right?
Right.
So we knew early on we were going to use our athleticism, whether it be football, basketball, wrestling, whatever, to get that degree, to get the education. Because even if football ended tomorrow, you still got to have an education to make it in the not to make it in the future, but some type of skill, whether it's a trade or something. You got to have a plan, you
Yeah.
know, to in order for you to move on in life, right? So it started early, and again, that's where the advice I have for moms, regardless of the situation of you and dad, whether you're married, you're separated, what have you, you all are still a unit, and you still have to be able to compartmentalize your personal feelings, your relationship with your kids' lives, parenting, and the business, right? Your
Yeah.
child and their future, that's y'all business. You gotta treat it just like we gotta be able to work together. We gotta communicate. We gotta have a plan. We got to have all of these things in place in order to make our kids successful. It's not always about mom and dad, but it's about what mom and dad got to be in order to may help their kids move forward and be successful. So, yeah, that's how we kind of approached it. We approached it early. Regardless if we stayed together or got a divorce, the goal for our kids had always remained the same.
That is absolutely tremendous. That game plan leads to people just growing and growing. And when your children see that you all are a team, no matter if you're in the home or not, that's a
Mm,
tremendous asset because they always see that mom and dad, although the vision might not be clear of where it's going, my mom and dad always love me and support me. And
right.
it's genetically inclined, I would say that too, because their father was a professional athlete as well.
Yeah.
So going into it, sometimes it's genetics that plays a huge part in your sons being successful.
Yeah, and they got their hype for me.
See, hear that, Eric? You don't get the credit. It comes from mom tonight. It's all about mom. They got the hype from
They
mom's
got the
side.
hype for me. Yeah. So, like I know I always make that joke, but I'm serious though. Like our genetics just happen to, give them some blessings, and they were able to we just recognized it early. Like, yeah, we just gonna use these tools that God gave us to help them get where they need to be, you know. But as parents, even if your kid isn't an athlete, um, even if your kid isn't an athlete, you still want to set those goals for them, like making sure that they're held accountable, make sure they have good character, they're good citizens, that they know how to be scheduled as a regiment, disciplined. Like those are all skills that you're going to give your kid anyway, you know what I mean? But those are also good attributes in an athlete as well. And long as, mom and dad have that same goal, like, hey, these are what we want in our kids, it helps them meet goals later on in the future.
Got it. Got it. Now, let's keep it real tonight, Keisha. As a mother, what were your initial fears or concern when football started to become serious? Now, I'm all the mothers, because we know it, we got a lot of moms out here like, my baby not gonna play that sport. My baby. Now, we know it. He was a wrestler. You already
Yeah.
admitted to that. What were
Uh-huh.
your initial fears? Let's be real. Let's keep it funky.
My initial fears, I didn't want him to wrestle, to be honest. I was more afraid of him wrestling than I was afraid of him, playing football. But every mom is gonna have the same fear, and that's, our kids play a violent sport. right?
Yeah.
We know that they're going to get hurt or what have you. But see, that's where your faith got to come into play as well, you know.
Amen.
You want your children, I tell this to every mom, especially at the beginning of Pee Wee League season. Well, oh, my baby got his first helmet and stuff like that. I'm so scared. I tell every mom this, like, look, do not let your fears become your children's fears. And it's not even if they playing sports. If you don't like to swim and your baby ain't afraid of water, put them in swim classes. Don't let your fears become your children's fears, right?
Right.
Play. I always tell a mom this, when they getting ready to go out there in that field, you just be the biggest cheerleader. Like, go out there, you have fun. We gonna, go out there, you do your best, and you gonna go get them. You touch their helmet, say a prayer over them, and you just like, go ahead, baby, and you become their biggest cheerleader, and you go cry in the car. Like, don't let them know that you're afraid, especially with moms. If moms, we just have this thing with our kids, and our kids can feel our feelings. If you afraid, you gonna make that child go out there afraid, and they gonna get hurt, right?
Right.
So you just allow them to go out there, be free, let them learn. They gonna get hurt, but you have to be their biggest cheerleader. And by the end of the seasons, them mamas be out there with they pom poms and they shirts on, and you know they get over it. But that's any lesson I would tell any mom. Don't let your fears become your children's fears. You know what I mean? Like you put that brave face on them, and you let them go. So that's one big thing. But to be honest, as your kid gets older and more successful they get, you you wish you could just give them success, right?
Right.
I had first time my son missed the playoffs, he was tore up and I didn't know what to do. Like I couldn't take that pain away. I couldn't just make him a champion and say, "Hey, you got to go get it." So that pain and ache is different. You know what I mean? Like now I just don't like them being discomfort because there's nothing that I could do. I just feel helpless as a mother. Like that's a hard place to be in as a mother when you can't do anything. But what you can do is you need to be able to shift them in a different direction. Like mental illness in football players is extremely high, right? It
Yes.
plays a hard mental toll on football players. And you have to be able to shift them to the light and keep them to the light. Like, man, babe, I remember when you first remember in the beginning of the season and you couldn't do this, and look how far you gotten. And you gotta be able to shift them and get them to pivot to the positive quickly, help them recover. And that's something that as moms, we got to try to do, what I mean? Make sure you get your kids and mentals in the right place and check on them and things like that. But yeah, that's my fear was in the beginning. I ain't want my kid wrestling. I ain't want nobody manhandling my baby out there. But he got good at it, so he was doing the manhandling, so I gave him okay with it. But yeah. But as a mom, just don't let your fears stop your kid from being a superstar or, the next X-Man. Don't stop them. Just let them go head first.
Now, moms, you all are hearing it. You are hearing this
Hmm.
up front and center from a mom's perspective, because a lot of moms don't speak this talk. They always step into training. When I'm training, I'm dealing with all kind of things. I see the moms cuddling men in the gladiator sport, which in turn, if you keep cuddling them, they're going to expect it in the game. So recruiting is totally different. And
Yeah.
for you right now, Keisha, recruiting can feel overwhelming with all the calls. I heard you say about Eric, he had two opportunities. Now with your other son, Marcellus, letters start flowing in, visits start
Yeah.
flowing in, promises start flowing in. So from
Hmm.
a mom's perspective or standpoint, what were the most confusing or stressful parts of the recruiting process from from your seat?
Yeah, before I hit that, there's one more point I want to make as well as mamas. What you brought up a good point about as far as the cuddling. In football and in any sport, moms, you have to let your child be coached. If your
Amen.
if a coach get on your kid, sometimes you got to let them get on your kid, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? And then but you have to be able to reel your kid in and be like, okay, what the coach go off on you about? Well, he said I wasn't doing this. I said, well, I was watching you at practice and you was over there goofing off on the sideline. So
Preach.
he did that. He did what he was supposed to do. Oh, I wasn't in my stance right. Well, did you put your butt down the way you said to? You know what I mean? Like sometimes you just have to let that happen. And you can't just keep jumping out there and thinking that you finna just go off on the coach. It because that brings to the point that you're making as far as the recruiting process, right?
Yeah.
Moms, when your son is going through a recruiting process, you have to understand that these colleges are about to put millions of dollars investment into your kid, right? They paying for scholarship, they paying for housing, they paying for travel, equipment, they're paying for, bold thing, they're paying for, they're putting it fit and they're about to invest a lot of money into your child, right? They
Mhm.
want to make sure they're going to get a good return on your investment. They also not only look at the recruit, but they look at the family too. They want
Yeah.
to make sure that that kid is coming from a good background, that kid don't have a lot of distractions at home, that that parent ain't finna come on campus and start wilding out, that
Mhm.
that parent is not about to become their headache, right?
Yep.
So you have to watch your behavior as well. So if your kid is out there getting coached, you could potentially impact your child's future because that coach is going to have a lot of say to the college recruiter that comes to look at your child, right? And you want to make sure that you're not being a roadblock in your children's future, right?
Right.
Now, I'm not saying if the coach is doing something real crazy and off the wall that you're not supposed to say anything. But when it comes to being on the field in this football business, then sometimes you have to be very strategic on what you do and how you handle those situations. The recruitment process, you're correct. You get very overwhelmed because you getting calls, coaches reaching out to you, they're wanting to do visits, they need you to go here, you need to go there. Um, but those you're gonna have to sacrifice. Almost recruitment becomes like a second job, right?
Right.
Um, the Marcellus would come, we would all sit down, me, mom, me, dad, and the athlete or whatever, will sit down and like, hey, this is the camp season that's coming up. These are the camps that we got you going to. This is what we need you to tell your coach that you're going to be missing practice on these days, right? Dad, I can't go to this camp. Can you take him? Or
Mhm.
mom, I got this thing at work. I need you to go. Right. So you all are working together to navigate this whole recruitment process, making sure as a mom, one of the jobs is you become the secretary, right? You have to, hey, did you go to the athletic office? Did you see if you had some mail? Hey, this coach came, you told me that the coach came to see you. What coach was it? What school was it? Okay, you
Mhm.
remember the name of the school? What colors was it? Oh, Indiana came. Which Indiana? Indiana State, Indiana University, Indiana Wesleyan.
Yep.
So you as mom need to be able to organize and making sure that everybody's on the same page as far as the recruiting process come. Like, I did a lot of the family calendar stuff. Like, okay, we got to get the eligibility number by this date.
Yep.
Core grades come out this date. We got to register for this camp by this date. You know what I mean? So that was kind of like my role. And as moms, you have to help your athlete navigate keeping on top of everything because we all know teenagers be like, I don't, I don't know what to do. You got to
Yep.
start making them responsible because when they get on campus, you're not going to be able to navigate all of that for them, right? So you're going to have to get them in the practice of handling business, being responsible for their personal calendars and all those type of things. So, um, you know, I kept a notebook. When a coach called or a coach talked to him, we would
Mhm.
recircle back and was like, okay, how did you feel about that, coach? Did he give you an offer, yes or no? Did he want you to come and visit? And just take notes down of, what those contacts were. So we would all be on the same page. So when we circled around with dad, we could tell him like, hey, he talked to this person on this day and that type of thing. So yeah, so it becomes a lot of phone calls. You got to do a lot of follow up with your kid. You got to do a lot of hand holding with your kid.
Yeah.
Um, and you have to be organized yourself. You can't be a procrastinator because deadlines are true deadlines in the football recruiting process.
You hit it on the head. So we always preach this when we train, division free. I don't care if you go division one, two, or three. Our philosophy is you go division free, and it takes hardcore work because a lot of
Mhm.
athletes are so focused on when I'm gonna get off of, when I'm gonna get off of. When you train, when you get up, when you work hard and do all these things is necessary because recruiting in today with the NIL process and all those things is totally
Mhm.
different from when me and Eric Senior, when we
Transfer
went through the
portal.
process with VHS tapes, all that kind of stuff, and no pointing fingers at coaches was not an option back in the time when we
Yeah.
played football. So in today, I want to ask you, Keisha, you wish
Yeah.
someone would have told you earlier, before the office, before all the hype, before all this stuff came along, as a mother, what do you think would have helped you throughout this process, or you wish someone would have told you earlier in this
Oh.
process with your babies?
I'm in a blessed position because I had two and that went through it. You know what I mean? But you know how the oldest one is. The oldest one is the
Mm-hmm.
test dummy, right?
Yep.
I wish I knew all the things I knew for Marcellus. I wish I knew them for Eric. But Eric was but he went through it because he went through a totally different process, right?
Right.
So that's the thing that I wish I did. I wish I knew all the stuff that I knew for Marcellus. I wish I knew it for Eric. Um, Growing when we were young parents, Eric is what's called a young five. You know what a young five is? A young five is a kid that was born toward the end of the year that they enter kindergarten, right? So you
Oh.
enter kindergarten in September. So he was born in July. So he, when going into kindergarten, will always be the youngest in his class. They
Okay.
call it reclassing now, I think it was,
Yep.
when they
Yep.
hold you back a year.
Mm-hmm.
But as a young parent, you're looking at it like, man, well, we done paying for daycare. You know what I mean? Like we
Mm-hmm.
ready to go to kindergarten. I wish I would have knew that I should have held him back a year and let him, become the oldest in the class versus becoming the youngest in the class because even with development, he always had to catch up with everybody else. And
Right.
it was like that in sports. He had a big frame, big body, but he just didn't have the muscle mass or he didn't have the mentality for his height yet. It caught up with him late. And so, like in his senior year, he just popped late. It just all clicked and it just all football all came together. But let me tell you how God works with that.
Tell us.
So we always wished that we could have gave him that extra year, but me not trusting, like his dad brought it up, like his senior years, like there's no way I'm gonna let him stay back another year, like he's about to graduate. Why would I hold him back? And
Mm-hmm.
that was just me and dad not being on the same page and me not being mentally mature enough to say, okay, let's look at this from a different perspective and do what's best for the situation, right?
Right.
So when he got into college, it started making sense. Like, yeah, I should have let him stay that extra year or whatever. But he started because toward the end of his college career, he started clicking. Stuff just started happening for him. He got an extra year because of COVID.
Uh,
You know what I mean? COVID
yeah.
gave us that extra year we always wish we had, and he took off. Had he not had that extra year, he wouldn't have been a conference champion. He probably wouldn't have gone through the NFL process because he just had such a phenomenal last year. But, that's the one thing I wish I would have knew. I wish I would have knew to hold him back a year instead of being, looking at my pocketbook like, oh, I ain't got to pay for daycare no more. But um but with Marcellus, I kind of Eric, yeah, I learned a lot from Eric's process, which made me better prepared for Marcellus. So I just wish that I had knew what I knew back
Mhm.
then. But something that I wish a lot more moms would do when I see them now is be a little bit more invested in what's happening with their athlete.
Yes.
There's plenty of times where you would go to practice and the moms are over on the side gossiping, or not gossiping, I ain't gonna say that. They just chit-chatting and just being social and stuff like that, and not really paying attention to what's happening on the field, not paying attention to what their athlete is doing, or they drop them off and keep going and not coming to some of the practices. And I get it, as moms, we tired, we got all this other stuff going on, but it really helps when you invest in your kid, and that's investing in them when you're paying attention to what's happening with them, right? I wish more moms would do that,
Mhm.
because when the recruitment process starts, college recruiters target moms on recruitment trips. And it's
Yep.
because they know if mom feels comfortable, if they let mom buy into it and mom falls in love with the program, it's more likely that that child is going to go to that school, right?
Yep.
So they come to you and they try to make you feel good, and they ask you all of these questions. Oh, did you see our pool? Did you see the snacks that we got out for them? You know what I
Hmm.
mean? And we can get so invested in the superficial and not really ask the questions of, okay, what's the academic center looking like? You know what I
Yep.
mean? Like, what are you putting into strengthening and conditioning? You're not
Hmm.
asking meat questions, and you could easily get swayed to a program that's not really that's the right fit for your kid. So I wish moms, I wish that moms would know those type of things, like, hey, pay attention to what your kid needs. You know what I mean? Like, if you know that your kid's equilibrium ain't came in yet and he fumbling, but he got all the other skills, know that, oh, I may need to put him in speed school. Let me find somebody. You know what I mean? So that's what I wish moms would do, is invest more in what their kids' sports is doing. And, even though we don't play the game, well, we're starting to play it, it doesn't mean that we don't need to know about the game.
That's a huge, huge bonus. And thank you for so much for sharing that. Because a lot of times, moms aren't, they're coming there, drop them off, and they leave. They don't know
Mm-hmm.
what their child's been through. It's been a struggle throughout practice. And then that child comes, tells a different story. They're moving their
Mm-hmm.
child from place to place, and that we're teaching them sometimes how to quit versus to
Yeah.
persevere, how to get that grit, how to fight through. And I'm so thankful as a mom, you saw that. You saw that vision. You saw all of those things. Now, with those things comes the cheering. And, sometimes you're not always cheering. And as a mom, you're trying to protect your babies and you're trying to balance that support, which is child's dreams, and trying to
Mm-hmm.
protect them, guard them from all this false advice. Because not all advice out here from youth football, high school, the promises, the pressure, all these things that come about. So, how did you kind of handle those things as a mother when your baby was in this position, from guarding them from all this bad advice? Some of the coaches aren't up to par. Some of them are putting bad advice, false promises, all that pressure that's on your shoulders. Sometimes you're like, Lord, I don't know what I'm gonna do. And I know you said prayer is a way that you went about it, but can you share from that perspective as well?
Again, it goes back to educating yourself, right? Like, I did a lot of research. Google became my friend, and listening to dad's talk. If you just sit there and listen to him, and anything that I didn't know, I was Googling it and looking it up. I wasn't sitting there talking to him. I was just listening, hustling into their conversations and looking things up, right? And so when
Right.
you have recruiters, if your child gets to a point where they're now looking for agents, you know do your research on them. It's okay to tell somebody, because they're going to put a lot of pressure on you for you to make a decision right then and there, like, well, are you ready to commit today? Like, We got to talk as a family and we got to come back, and then we'll get back to you. It's okay to say that, You also, as moms, we got to humble ourselves
Mm-hmm.
and be like, look, let me talk to dad, or like I know I don't know what it is that I'm doing, you know what I mean? Let me get some other advice, right? That's you gonna have to be able to like not know it all and and really seek counsel and ask other advice. I've been lucky because one, their dads weren't very involved, and he just his dad played football, so that did help. But I'm in a sorority, so I had fraternity brothers around me that I could easily go to and be like, "Hey, you know, let me ask you something." I had guys or people around me that I could get advice from as well. But you just have to follow up. Like when Eric was blessed, he has a awesome agent, and his agent first called him. We was on three-way, and we was listening in, and Dad was there, and I was being the secretary and taking notes. Every time he said something, I was looking it up to see if it was true. I was Googling this name and Googling that name, and just making sure that what this person is saying is legit or what have you. And God just guided our footsteps and we haven't had any, but there are horror stories out there where kids are getting pipelined, where they are we've been blessed. We had coaches and trainers that have been on the up and up, but there's been stories where kids have been pipelined where the coach has a relationship with this particular school and they're just pushing the kid to just go to that school.
Yeah.
And the parents are just, oh, the coach will take care of it, or, this third party is helping us and they're going to take care of it. No, you need to also be just invested in what's happening with your kid is than any coach or anybody else that's assisting you. So it's moms, just make sure that you're educating yourself and it's look stuff up when you hear it. Be humble enough to know like, hey, let me get back to you. I really don't know a lot. Let me look into it. It's okay to do that. So yeah.
That's amazing. See, in today's society, a lot of times I run into it as a trainer, and I've been training for over 10 years, helped over 850 athletes get into college, and I
Hmm.
always hear, Coach, when I'm gonna get an offer? And I'm sitting here, when you gonna put the work in? When you gonna dedicate yourself to getting up early in the morning? When you doing the push-ups? When you doing the extra things at home that we trying to design it? So,
Uh-huh.
I had the honor and the privilege of working with both your babies, with Eric before the pre-draft. He went out there and electrified everyone. He probably wasn't that high, but when he went down there their senior day, we worked. He went down there and went to work. Then he got
Hmm.
higher, 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 and then became a draft pick. This kid who no
Yep.
one really projected to even see, but the hard work, the dedication he put in by working them hands, being violent, doing these things. You have to invest and find someone who knows what they're doing because there's a
Yep.
lot of trainers out here. They flashy, they putting on the show, they act as if they've been training this kid for 10, 12 years, and they just came to meet this kid 1, 2, 3 days a week before. And
Hmm.
like Marcellus came in, zero offers, got 12 as soon as he went to camps after start
Yeah.
working because they have to know what they're doing. So from a mom's perspective, can you share about trainers, the things that you've been through? I know you touched base on some of those things about trainers, but tell them sometimes you're going to run into some people that sometimes not right.
Yeah, that's true. You're gonna run into money grabs, right? Where they're just doing it to just grab money or whatever. But the best way to do it is to see watch their success, right? So you probably don't know this, but you did a lot of social media when Marcellus was going through his process. I followed every single one of the people that you highlighted, like the kids, the students, right? Because if they're getting offers, did you freeze or did I freeze? Yeah, you have
On
froze, so I'm
social
like,
media
is it me?
because you disappeared from me. I'm like, I don't know where she went, but hey,
No, you had froze.
oh, I
So I
did.
thought yeah, you had froze. And it kept recording. So I'm like, okay, it's not me. So it must be him. Okay. But no, what I was seeing is that like whenever you have a trainer, the best way to see if that trainer is legit is to follow its clients, right? So this is when you was working with Isaiah, who went to Iowa State.
Yep.
You was working with like a couple of players, and I would follow them on Twitter, right? And they were older than Marcellus, but I knew that you were working with them. And when I saw their offers coming in, and I was just like, okay, he know what he's doing. But you also knew their dad, and I know that their dad would never put nobody in their life that's gonna be harmful to them or anything like that. But had we not had that relationship with you, that's what I always do is when they're going to even when they're going to camps, I'm looking at the camps and making sure that these are like legitimate camps and a good production is coming out of them. Like if these kids going to this camp, it's offers following it. You know what I
Yep.
mean? I look and see who's attending the camp and that type of thing. Like, if they're gonna get film afterwards that they could use for social media, stuff like that. Like
Hmm.
that's I'm looking at the results. And with Marcellus, when Marcellus started we were sending him up to Chicago to you. I just noticed this. I saw the difference in myself. His confidence was there. He knew what he was doing. Before you could think he was just fumbling around in the dark, but no, he when he came back, he knew what he was doing. And when you talking about your kid, putting in the work and how his offers coming. That's what happened with Marcellus. Marcellus would go to practice and he would come back home and practice. He would be out and back. He would be out there working on his hands, working on his feet. He would be doing his jump rope. Those are things you have to practice after practice. You just can't go to practice and be like, man, I'm done for the day. No, you need to be doing them push-ups. You need to be watching film. And when I
Yep.
mean watching film, not just your own, but are you watching other, other players and examining how they're doing things? You know what I mean? Like he was doing all of those little things. I don't know if you was teaching them that stuff or not, but I just noticed that his game enhanced after working with you. So then I knew that, okay, Enoch is legit, right? It's the results. And I would say that to any mom who you're looking for trainers and when you're looking for, different, um, you know, training camps to send your kid to follow the results. Look at what came out of if they went to go see this trainer. Like who's this trainer working with? Like how are they working out? And that's the best way to do it to me personally. But yeah, that's advice I get to parents.
Yeah, I can't thank you enough for sharing those words because it starts up front. We work. We want to build a body to compete at elite level in the unknowns. And I want to say this because kids come to us unknown, not even
Hmm.
known across the recruiting platforms. But if you invest time, like what you just said, Keisha, we send them home with homework. Go work on this, not just in front of me for an hour and a half. You got a whole week so that you can invest in yourself. So whatever I gave you, go home and do it. This
Hmm.
isn't it. The more you apply to yourself, the more you'll get out of it. So that is truly instrumental. I hope all players are listening, parents are listening, mothers listening, because we have to invest in ourselves. It's just like putting a deposit on self. When parents are putting this money down for your training, they invest in your future. And I always say this, parents, they come work with me, they're going to get the results, but I'm going to push them. I'm not about to sit here and cater to your child. I'm going to be one of those
Hmm.
coaches when they get to college. Those coaches going to be on them. They're going to yell and scream at them. And if you don't prepare them right now, they're going to fold. So,
Yeah.
Keisha,
Because
I
when they
asked,
get in college, you can't call the coach and say, you can't call the Nick Sabans of the world and be like, I want to talk to you about my kid. It doesn't work that way in college. So you're right. They got to get prepared now. So, and it is an investment. You know what I mean? Like you're investing your weekends, you're investing your money, and I tell a kid this all the time, like if you can buy these new Jordans, then you can go to 3 camps
say it.
for the summer. You
Yes.
sure can. You just got to give up some shoes and you can go to these camps because these kids are under the impression that the stands are full of recruiters, and it's not that way. You're gonna
Uh,
have to go to these camps and go in there and show that you can go up against some of the best kids in that camp and prove yourself. That's where you get your offers from.
You hear it loud and proud, parents. You hearing it from real deal. She's been through the process, and I tell parents, if you could buy Jordans, you could do this, you could do that. You have the money to take care of this baby because scholarships, they're from 40 to 100+ thousand dollars per year. And if you
Yep.
want to invest in your baby right now by just getting them training, because during the month of December all the way through roughly the end of May, most O-line, D linemen aren't doing anything. 7-on-7s going on all
Hmm.
across the world. But when it comes down to the big boys, yes, I'm saying it on this platform. The Shockers, the 5-on-5, we've got to take that to another level. And when Keisha's baby was here, we had 5-on-5 behind the scenes with Isaiah Lees, with Devontae Duns, with the Sampletons, all of those players going to Yale, I mean, I think our rate's probably about 90% Division 1. But again,
Yeah.
I don't care if they go Division 1. I don't care if they go Division 2, Division 3, NAIA. My goal is to put them back in the community, make them a more productive citizen so they can increase value in the overall perspective of this world. So
Yep.
as we look at this next question, I want to ask you and for you to be true. If your babies was done with football tomorrow, what do you think your sons would walk away with?
I hope that they walk away feeling accomplished of everything that they done. That's what I want for them. I want them to walk away feeling like they done everything that they could do. I want them to walk away knowing that they are good teammates, that they do community service, they've given back to the communities. And I tell them now, you all are examples. Like, you all are really live examples for kids that probably don't have never would think that this even possible, right? You all go back, they go back to their schools and they come back home. We're in a small little area here, but they're going back to their high schools and they're going back to their colleges, and people are in awe. Like, oh my God, you played in NFL. Like, you are kids' dreams, right? And you are influencing a lot of people, and you are making so many people proud of you because they've watched you were from this big, and now you're up here. And just know that you're an example, and that you are your other kids' dreams. So I hope that they walk away feeling like they've accomplished, that they're accomplished, and they've made other people proud of them. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
That I just want them happy, healthy. I want them, they have very good starts in life, and that's what any parent could want. But I tell them this, and I would tell this to any player, whether you're ending in high school, you're ending in college, or you're ending in the NFL, right? Remember
mhm,
when you very first started and you on a JFL league, and remember all of the kids on your team. Then remember all of the other kids in the different ages. Then remember all of the different teams that you've seen everywhere, and how many of
mhm,
them made it to high school teams, right? Then
yeah,
remember your freshman year into your senior year. Remember all of those kids. How many of them made it from freshman to senior? And if you get the chance to go to high school, go to college, think of all of the kids that you've played in high school, and think of all of the kids that you played in those schools, and how many of them made to college. And then how many of them made them to their senior year? How many of them made it to this? And just look, you always have to reflect on where you are and be proud of how far you've gotten from the beginning, right?
right,
So I hope that every kid who plays any type of sport look at it that way. If you made it from your first day to your end of the season, think back of how far you've gone and be proud of that, right? Be proud of the
right,
moment that you're in, because everybody didn't make it to that moment. So
right.
I hope my kids, I hope my kids, when they leave and when they're done, that they look at it like that way. Like, man, I am 1% of all of those.
Yep.
So,
Yep. Yep.
yeah.
Your babies are the cream of the crop in all
Yeah.
athletics. When you think about this game, it's only 1 to 1.5% of all athletes in the United States that have the opportunities that your babies have, which is to go on and play for the National Football League. And I learned it. They told us the National Football League stands for not for long.
No,
And
it's not.
that's the real deal. But your babies have the opportunity to experience this. So you all hear it loud and proud from a mom perspective. She's telling you all what it takes, the drive, the grit, and all of the things, the fame that one of her babies, it was a little different from the latter baby being Eric Johnson Jr.,
Mhm.
who's with the Indianapolis Colts, to Marcellus Johnson, who's now with the Dallas Cowboys. But you all that are listening right now, I'm going to let Kesha share from youth, high school recruiting, and what social media means, because this is very important. Social media platform, what part does that play in the recruiting process, Kesha, overall for you when you came down to going to these visits and what you heard from the college coaches as they transition to the next phase, in addition to them being professional athletes?
Woo. Man. So you drive your own recruitment process. I could say that, right? And that means that it's different from back in the day when you all have VHS tapes, right? You all can pretty much drive your own recruitment process. You can they making mixtapes out. You got Huddle. You have all of these different opportunities to be able to promote yourself, right? So social media can hurt you and it also can hinder you, right?
Yeah,
As parents, it's the same thing for us. Like our social media can actually hurt our kids' recruitment process because if these even if your kid is going into like a large team, you know what I mean, like a Power 5 team, or even into the NFL, they background check the parents too. You know what I mean?
yeah,
They look into you. It's been a couple of couple of I think I went over to U of I with Marcellus and the coach knew. He said, "Oh, so you're from Normal and you're from this," and
yep,
like he knew I worked for, who I worked for and everything. And I'm just
yep.
like, "How did you know all of that?"
They doing their homework.
Yeah, they do their homework. And when Marcellus went to Eastern Michigan, his coach came down like maybe 2 or 3 days before signing day. They do house home visits and they wanna, check it out to make sure that, the kid is coming from a good background place. Not to, like check see where you're living or nothing like that, but they just want to make sure that it's a good environment that they're about to invest in, right? So
Yep,
social media, your athletes, be careful with what you're posting. Even when you're in 8th grade, clean your Twitter up is what I would say. You want to use your Twitter as a tool for recruitment. So you just want to be careful about what you're posting. Um, you know, uh, you see athletes all the time putting in their weight and what their scores are, their GPA, and use your name because it's
mm-hmm,
easier for a coach to recruit you. And
yep,
like when Marcellus was going through it, like I tried my best to try to manage his social media stuff and like what content that we put out there. We always posted about when he got an offer because coaches pay attention to that.
yep,
But as far as parents and moms, you got to be careful what you posting too. Like if you
yep,
getting it in with the club and popping bottles and stuff like that, you may want to not do that while your kid is going through this process or something like that because that can hinder, you know, any type of opportunities that your kid can get. So just be careful with that. Even in friend group, you know what I mean? Like when you're athletes, you want to make sure that they're not getting tagged in nothing crazy, you know what I mean, that their friends is out there doing because it's a reflection of that athlete and that's what those athletes are interested in. So just be careful with your social media. And You can drive your own recruitment. When you get your tape out there, put your best tape out and, post it onto your page. If you go into a camp and you say, hey, you want to show a pattern of, hey, I've been working out with Enoch, we had a great session, or I'm going to the MLK showcase in Chicago. Show the coaches that you're investing in your development, right? Because it shows like, okay, this kid is kind of coachable. Okay, this kid is
Yep.
wanting to get better, and then show your progress. Like with Marcellus, when one of his biggest, I think, not hinders, but it was a knock against him was that, he was really small. He hadn't picked up weight. So he made it a goal, like, I'm about to add on 20 pounds. And we showed pictures of the scale as he was, gaining weight. And we
Yep.
showed a picture from February to April. His neck got big. You know what I mean? So, you want to make sure that you're using social media to your advantage and not let it be a hindrance to you, because I'm telling you, moms, coaches know that we are an avenue to getting that kid to come there. So they're going to be looking at you just as if they're looking at the athlete as well. So it goes back to making sure you're educated, that you'll be able to have an intelligent conversation with the coaches. You're just not letting them fluff you, and you can you have input in what's going to happen with your kid, right? So,
Right.
yeah. I
That's
don't know if
big.
you all seen that last recruit with his mama wouldn't sign his NIL deal. I would say this to parents, like, at one point your student, your athlete is going to become an adult, right? And they're going to need to be able to make these decisions for themselves. As
Right.
parents, we stop becoming parents of giving orders to parents of adults where we just consult. You know what I mean? We just give advice, because it's that child that has to go to those classes. It's that child that has to work with that coach. It's that child that has to be out there on that field and play in that program, right? So as
Yep.
parents, we just have to become the best support system we can for that athlete. So um that's what I would say, is that, yeah, you just become a good support system, but be an advocate and educate yourself.
Man, you are hitting everything on the head. I hope you all are listening tonight because she is sharing, giving you all the nuggets. This conversation is so powerful because it reminds us that recruiting isn't just about the stars. It's not about the stats, not about scholarships. It's about family, the value, the vision, all the things you need to do to prepare yourself for success. So, to every mother out there, your voice matters. Your instincts matter. Your presence matter. A major part of your child's success comes from you. So, Kesha, I want to thank you so much for trusting us tonight with your story, being a voice for these parents everywhere, all across this world. You all heard it loud and proud. Let's give it up for Miss Kesha Richardson on tonight. To all of our listeners, if this episode helped you in any way, please share it with parents, with athletes, with coaches who need to hear it, because this is very, very, very impactful. I am overwhelmed. I'm excited with this opportunity to speak with you, Kesha. It's been a long time. Let's continue to catch up. And I tell you all this, until our next time, don't be shocked, which represents our 5-on-5 team. Be a shocker, because it all starts up front with the big boys, loud and proud, giving them the love, the appreciation that they ultimately deserve. So I appreciate you, Kesha, on tonight, spending this hour in a little change on this night, just sharing your experience and all of the things that you wanted to discuss with the parents so they could prepare themselves throughout this entire recruiting process.
No problem. Love being on. Thank you for everything that you're doing for the big guys, and, helping out the parents, and, getting our future leaders, because that's what they are. They're going to be our future leaders, and getting them mentally prepared. So I appreciate you too.
Absolutely. And on behalf of Stars Up Front and our organization, the Shockers, and all the things that come forward, we ask that God bless you, continue to strengthen you all around. give you health and strength on the other side of our 50 as we continuously celebrate life. And shout out to Eric Johnson Jr., to Marcellus, to your other baby Jay, all of the family. We just wish them well and wish you much success throughout all of your endeavors. Keep you all lifted in prayer. And again, thank you for coming to share tonight.
Thank you.
Take care. God bless.
God bless.
I think we did a great